I had just closed a $5 million deal. At the celebration dinner, I put $825 on my personal card to cover the tab. When I submitted the expense report, Barb Henderson from accounting kicked it right back to me. The reason? The dining allowance was capped at $800. I was over by a quarter, 25 cents, so she refused to reimburse a single dime. 3 days later, management deployed me on an emergency trip to Chicago. When I returned to the New York headquarters, I marched into the finance office with my receipts. Barb glared at the paperwork over her spectacles. You expensed $400 for an Amtrak ticket to Chicago? Why didn't you fly? She tapped a manicured nail on her desk. Flights are heavily discounted right now. You could have done a round trip $200. Lucas, why can't you think about the company's bottom line and be a little flexible? I looked at her, my expression deadpan. Company policy states that junior associates are restricted to rail travel for domestic trips under 800 miles. But the flight is cheaper, couldn't you just? I cut her off. The employee handbook also strictly states that unauthorized air travel is non-reimbursable. I didn't dare be flexible. Barb's face went rigid. She clearly hadn't expected me, usually the office doormat, to push back with such precision. Her fingers hammered against her calculator, creating a rhythmic, aggressive clacking sound. The company hired you to solve problems, not to act like a tape recorder reciting the bylaws. I didn't say a word, I just stared at her. The silence stretched until she grew uncomfortable, her voice rising an octave. What are you looking at? Am I wrong? You're going to redo the entire report over 25 cents. You wasted hundreds of dollars on a train to follow a rule blindly. Lucas Miller, you have a serious attitude problem. I nodded. You're right. My attitude is the problem. I extended my hand. So, to prove I was here, and to prove you rejected me, please sign this expense report, Barb. Note the reason for refusal right there. Barb's eyes bulged. Excuse me. It's just protocol. Corporate compliance requires that any rejected expense report for special circumstances must be signed off by the reviewing finance officer. I need to give David Sterling an explanation. I said the name David Sterling softly, but Barb's complexion shifted instantly. She held that piece of paper like it was radioactive. If she signed, she was documenting her own petty obstructionism. If she didn't, she was violating procedure. Finally, she snatched a pen, scribbled a furious, illegible scrawl, and flung the paper back at me. Get out. I picked up the sheet, glanced at the note, over budget, rejected, and turned to walk toward the director's office. David Sterling, my direct supervisor, was reclining in his ergonomic leather chair, sipping an espresso with leisurely grace. Lucas, my boy, everything wrapped up. I placed the 2 rejected expense reports side by side on his mahogany desk, along with printouts of the 2 relevant company policies I'd pulled from the intranet. One for dining limits, one for travel restrictions. David, Barb says there are issues with these. David's gaze flicked from the receipts to the policy documents without a furrow in his brow. He set down his cup, leaned forward, and clasped his hands. Lucas, look, I know you work hard. That $5 million contract? You were the MVP. Then came a pivot. But the company has its constraints. Barb is just following the rules. She has to answer to the auditors. The quarter overage, it is technically over, and the train was more expensive than the flight. If you're this rigid, how is she supposed to do her job? How does that make me look as a leader? I remained silent. He continued, you can't be so stiff in this business. Sometimes you have to eat a little loss to gain a lot. Why make everyone unhappy over a few $100? Tell you what, he said, waving a hand magnanimously. Take the dinner receipt back, smudge off the 25 cents, and resubmit it for exactly $800. As for the train ticket, just eat that cost. Consider it a contribution to the firm. I'll make sure the assistant puts in an extra $200 for your bonus this month. I laughed. It wasn't out of anger. It was genuinely funny. He wanted me to trade $1,200 of my own money for a hypothetical $200 bonus. This was some Enron-level accounting logic. David, I said, if I recall correctly, 3 months ago, Mike from sales took a client to a gentleman's spa to close the West Side deal. He expensed $3,000. You signed off on it without blinking. I don't believe massage parlor is a line item in our corporate policy. David's face darkened. And last month, admin replaced the bonsai trees in your office. $2,000 for a single ficus. You approved that, too. The company procurement standard for decorative greenery is capped at $100 per unit. Lucas, his voice dropped, the temperature in the room plummeting. What are you implying? I'm not implying anything. I just feel that the rules around here seem to be selectively applied. David leaned back, eyeing me cold, his gaze dissecting me. Are you questioning my authority? I wouldn't dare. I shook my head. I just want the money I'm owed. Every cent of it. He stared at me for a long time, the air in the room turning viscous. Finally, he let out a scoffing laugh. Fine, you got a spine. I'll remember this, Lucas. Leave the papers. I'll talk to finance. I didn't move. David, I think I'll hold on to them for now. What? You don't trust me? No. I'm just afraid you're a busy man and might forget. I gathered the papers, turned, and walked out. Behind me, I heard the muffled thud of a coffee cup slamming against the desk. The next week was eerily calm. My reimbursement request vanished into the void. Neither David nor Barb mentioned it. That $1,200, along with the tension of that day, seemed to have evaporated. My colleagues looked at me with a mix of pity and distance. Everyone knew I had crossed David and Barb, and in this office, that meant my days were numbered. I didn't care. I clocked in on time, did my work, and clocked out on the dot. Until Friday afternoon. David called me into his office. He handed me a dossier, a plastic smile plastered on his face. Lucas, big project. It's yours. I took it and flipped it open. The words Lunar Celadon caught my eye. My heart skipped a beat. Heritage Prime, our firm, was one of the country's top auction houses. The Lunar Celadon was a set of 3 legendary Song Dynasty porcelain pieces, lost for a century, recently resurfacing in the hands of a reclusive collector in Asheville, North Carolina. The owner, Mr. Thorne, wanted to commission a private sale. The destination, a specific buyer in London. This wasn't just a project. This was the most significant deal the company had seen in 5 years. The value was incalculable. The commission alone would exceed $10 million. Mr. Thorne specifically asked for our best logistics expert to handle the transfer. I thought about it, and that's you. David patted my shoulder. What do you say? Up for the challenge. I closed the folder. David, my expenses still haven't been paid. David's smile froze. Lucas, we were talking about a multi-million-dollar asset, and you're still hung up on a few $100? It's not a few hundred. It is $1,200. 25. I corrected him. That is money I fronted personally. It is now affecting my credit score and my livelihood. What is this? Are you threatening me? I'm stating a fact. I have no liquidity. I cannot front any expenses for the company. This project, from inspection to packaging to transport, requires upfront capital at every step. I can't do it. David paced the office, furious. Fine. Fine. Great. He barked. I'll have Barb wire you the money right now. Immediately, he grabbed the phone and roared into it. Barb, Lucas's expense report. Approve it now. Don't short him a penny. He slammed the phone down and glared at me, breathing heavily. Satisfied? I nodded. Thank you, David. Don't give me that. He shoved the file into my chest. If this project goes sideways, I will hold you personally responsible. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a bank notification. Deposit received. $1,200. 25. I looked at the number, feeling absolutely nothing. I knew this was just the beginning. David thought money would shut me up, make me grateful, make me his loyal dog again. He was wrong. Some debts aren't settled just because the check clears. The Lunar Celadon project officially launched. Step 1. Go to Asheville, inspect the goods, and supervise the custom packaging. I followed protocol and submitted a travel request. Destination, Asheville, NC. Transport, economy flight. Accommodation, partner hotel, standard room. 30 minutes later, the request bounced back. Rejected by Barb Henderson. Reason, accommodation over budget. I took the form to the finance office. Barb, I booked the corporate partner hotel. How is it over budget? Barb didn't even look up, pointing at her screen. New corporate policy issued yesterday. In response to the group's cost-cutting initiative, the lodging cap for non-director level employees has been reduced by 30%. The hotel you booked is $80 over the new limit. I looked at her bureaucratic smugness, feeling a strange sense of calm. So, which hotel fits the standard? Barb tapped a few keys and read out a name. The Red Roof Inn, the one by the interstate. I didn't argue. I went back to my desk, opened Google Maps, and checked the location. That specific Red Roof Inn was a 90-minute drive from Mr. Thorne's estate in the mountains. A round trip of 3 hours. I closed the browser tab and revised my travel request. Accommodation changed to the Red Roof Inn. Then, in the miscellaneous column of the request form, I added a line. Estimated daily local transport. Uber/car service, approximate. $200. I resubmitted the modified request. This time, Barb didn't reject it. But David's phone call came through almost immediately. Lucas, what is the meaning of this? $200 a day for transport? Are you trying to rob us? The voice on the other end was loud enough to make my eardrum throb. I held the phone away from my ear. David, this is the most economical transport plan based on the hotel location mandated by Barb and the worksite location. Can't you take a bus? David, the bus route requires 2 transfers and takes 2.5 hours one way. If I spend 5 hours a day commuting, who is going to handle the inspection and packaging supervision? You, David stammered. Furthermore, Mr. Thorne requires our team to be on site promptly at 9:00 a.m. To take the bus, I would need to leave the motel at 6:00 a.m. After work, I wouldn't return until 10:00 p.m. This would severely impact my physical state and efficiency. Given the critical nature of the Lunar Celadon project, I believe the $200 transport cost is necessary and reasonable. I enunciated every word with crystal clarity. There was a long silence on the other end. Finally, David spoke through gritted teeth. Fine. Approved. Lucas, you better not be playing games with me. I hung up and watched the words approved appear on my screen, my face expressionless. You guys want to play by the rules? I'll play by the rules right into the ground. I arrived in Asheville. The room with the red roof smelled of mildew and stale cigarettes. The sheets were as stiff as sandpaper. The air conditioner rattled like a dying tractor, and the roar of trucks on the interstate was constant. I dropped my bags and immediately hailed a ride to Mr. Thorne's estate. Mr. Evelyn Thorne was a man in his 60s, slender, refined, with an air of old-world dignity. He led me to the Lunar Celadon. 3 pieces of porcelain sat quietly in a climate-controlled glass case. A flared vase, a gallbladder vase, and a lees jar. The glaze was a white-tinged cyan, like lake water under moonlight, cold, profound. Just looking at them commanded awe. Mr. Mr. Thorne's voice was gentle. These 3 pieces are like my children. I hope they will be treated with the utmost care. I nodded solemnly. Rest assured, Mr. Thorne, that is my duty. The next step was custom packaging. Artifacts of this caliber couldn't use off-the-shelf materials. They required a one-vessel, one-sack approach, custom-built inner cores and outer crates made from acid-free paper, high-density foam, and paulownia wood, tailored to the specific shape, size, and center of gravity of each piece. I contacted the best antique packaging specialist in the region, a craftsman named Arthur Blackwood. After inspecting the items, he gave me a quote. 3 pieces, packaging cost, $25,000. This price was within my expectations. I immediately drafted an expense approval request, attached Arthur's quote, and emailed it to David and Barb. Less than 10 minutes after I hit send, Barb called. Her voice was as piercing as nails on a chalkboard. Lucas, have you lost your mind? 25 grand for 3 wooden boxes? Why don't you just rob a bank? I replied calmly. Barb, these aren't ordinary wooden boxes. This is protection for national treasures. Arthur Blackwood is a recognized master in the industry. This price already includes a discount out of respect for Mr. Thorne. I don't care about some master. The company's procurement catalog lists our premium packaging supplier. A full set from them is $500. You are over budget by 50 times. Absolutely not. Barb, the supplier in the catalog, makes industrial packaging. Their materials and chemical treatments could cause irreversible damage to the porcelain glaze. Are you going to take responsibility for that? Or am I? Don't you try to scare me. Barb shrieked. I'm telling you, I will not approve a penny of this. Figure out yourself. She slammed the phone down. I stared at the disconnected screen. I didn't call back. I opened my laptop and composed a new email to David and Barb. Subject: Risk Alert Compliance Assessment and Request for Direction regarding Lunar Celadon Packaging Protocol. David, Barb per clause 4. 2. One of the project contract, Heritage Prime, is obligated to provide customized packaging consistent with museum-grade transport standards. Currently, the compliant solution, Blackwood Proposal, $25,000, has been rejected by finance due to budget overage. Finance has recommended the standard vendor, quote, $500. My assessment indicates the standard vendor solution poses a catastrophic risk of permanent damage to the artifacts, which would constitute a material breach of contract and trigger the $15 million insurance liability clause. Please provide immediate direction on how to proceed. Kindly select one of the following options via email reply to serve as the operational record. Option A, approve the $25,000 budget for the Blackwood proposal. Option B, mandate the use of the $500 standard vendor. By selecting this, you acknowledge the risk and agree to sign the attached liability acceptance waiver, assuming full legal and financial responsibility for potential damages. This is a critical path item. Please reply within 1 hour. Failure to respond will be interpreted as a decision to suspend the project, which I will communicate to the client. Mr. Thorne, CC, Legal Department. At the end of the email, I manually added the legal department's distribution list. I sent the email, closed my laptop, and walked to the window. Outside, the sun was setting over the Blue Ridge Mountains, painting the sky in hues of kiln fire. My phone sat quietly on the table. I knew it would ring soon. Who would break first? 1 minute later, the screen lit up. The caller ID wasn't David, and it wasn't Barb. It was a local Asheville number. I picked up. Is this Mr. Lucas Miller of Heritage Prime? The voice on the other end was deep, authoritative, and carried a suffocating pressure. This is Evelyn Thorne. My heart dropped like a stone. Mr. Miller, I just received a disturbing phone call. Someone tells me your company intends to ship my lunar celadone in potato crates. Mr. Thorne's voice was devoid of warmth, sharp as an ice pick. I gripped the phone, my palms slick with sweat. David and Barb, those idiots. They must have tried to use the client to pressure me. But instead, the complaint went straight to the owner. Mr. Thorne, there has been a misunderstanding. My voice remained steady. Internal management is currently reviewing the budget for the packaging protocols. This is standard procedure. Procedure? Thorne scoffed coldly. My assistant tells me your finance department is trying to save 20 grand by using substandard materials that will scratch the glaze. Mr. Miller, is this Heritage Prime's procedure? Mr. Thorne, please trust my professionalism. I interrupted him firmly. On my watch, no non-compliant materials will touch the lunar celadone. If the company cannot approve a compliant solution, I will halt the project immediately and explain the situation to you personally. I spoke with absolute finality. This was my line in the sand. There was silence on the line. Thorne was assessing me. After a few seconds, he spoke slowly. Good. I'll give you 1 hour. In 1 hour, I want confirmation that this is resolved. Otherwise, our business relationship ends here, and I will ensure Heritage Prime never operates in the high-end market again. The line went dead. My shirt was soaked through. I watched the time on my phone tick away. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. 15. David's call finally came through. His voice was no longer angry. It was trembling with suppressed panic. Lucas, who the hell leaked this to Thorne's assistant? I didn't say a word. I replied coolly. I just sent an email requesting your confirmation. Perhaps there was a deviation in internal communication? David choked on his words. He had probably sent Barb to complain to someone higher up to pressure me, or try to contact Thorne's staff to complain about my spending, and it had backfired spectacularly. Fine. Enough. Stop talking. David sounded frantic. The packaging fee. Approved. 25 grand. Approved immediately. Get it done. You have to smooth things over with Thorne. David, verbal approval isn't enough, I said, unmoved. I need your email reply, confirming the selection of option A. Or you can sign a liability waiver for option B right now, and I can proceed with the cheap boxes. Heavy breathing rasped through the speaker. After a long pause, David squeezed the words out through clenched teeth. Wait. 1 minute later, a new email hit my inbox. From David Sterling. CC. Me. Barb Henderson, Legal Department. Per review, the $25,000 packaging budget for the lunar celadone project is approved. Lucas Miller is authorized to execute immediately. David Sterling. I looked at the email, the corners of my mouth tilting upward. Then I dialed Arthur Blackwood. Arthur, we're a go. The packaging issue was resolved without catastrophe. Under Arthur's skilled hands, the 3 pieces of lunar celadone were securely swaddled, nestled into their bespoke sacks. I video recorded the entire process for the archives. Next came transport. From Asheville to the London delivery point, specifically the initial leg to the secure airport facility. For items of this value, standard logistics were out of the question. The contract stipulated a fully enclosed, climate-controlled armored transport with dual driver rotation and at least 2 armed guards. I contacted several top-tier security transport firms. The most reliable was G4S. They had extensive experience and an impeccable reputation. But they weren't in Heritage Prime's preferred vendor list, and their quote was high. Full service, $100,000. I gritted my teeth and bundled the quote, the request, and G4S's credential files into an email to David and Barb. This time, there wasn't even a phone call. Barb rejected it directly in the workflow system, her comments written in bold red font. Rejected. Absurd. The company has a long-term logistics partner, Long-Haul Logistics, for under $10,000. Why use a luxury vendor? Project manager Lucas Miller must provide a valid explanation or face a report to group audit. The text practically screamed from the screen. I looked at the exclamation points and could visualize Barb's twisted expression. I didn't reply. I didn't argue. I simply drafted another email. The same familiar recipe. Subject: Critical Risk Escalation Final Confirmation of Transport Protocol for Lunar Celadon. David Barb, the transport solution compliant with the project contract and insurance policy, G4S, quote, $100,000 has been rejected by finance due to excessive cost and non-vendor status. Finance has recommended the incumbent partner, Long Haul Logistics. My assessment confirms that Long Haul does not possess climate-controlled armored vehicles or armed security capabilities, failing to meet contract requirements. If selected, the transit insurance will be immediately voided. Per company regulation, Major Project Risk Management, Section 7, decisions that may expose the firm to significant financial or reputational loss must be filed for record. I again request direction. Please select one of the following via email reply. Option A, special approval for the $100,000 budget and emergency onboarding of G4S as a vendor. Option B, mandate the use of long-haul logistics. By selecting this, you agree to sign the attached insurance void liability acceptance, assuming full personal legal and financial responsibility for any loss. Please reply within 1 hour. Failure to respond will be interpreted as a decision to suspend the project, which I will report to the client, Mr. Thorne, and the insurance underwriters. CC, Legal Department, Office of the Chairman. This time, I added one more recipient. Office of the Chairman. I didn't know if Preston Vance's secretary would read it, but the threat was enough to terrify David and Barb. I sent the email. This time, I didn't even wait 5 minutes. David called, practically scorching the phone line. His voice was trembling. Lucas, what the hell are you doing? You copied the chairman. David, I am simply following company regulations to synchronize major project risks with relevant leadership, I answered calmly. You are staging a coup. I am simply applying for budget and mitigating risk. 100 grand. Why don't you just die? The department doesn't have that kind of money. David sounded hysterical. Then please sign for option B. Sign my ass. He swore. Lucas, I'm telling you, the second this project ends, you are fired. I swear it. We can discuss what happens after the project. My voice remained ripple-free. Right now, I need your decision. Option A or option B. On the other end, there's only the sound of heavy, labored breathing, like a broken bellows. After a long while, he deflated. Option A. I need the email. Wait. He hung up. I looked out the window. The sky was completely dark. For some people, this was going to be a sleepless night. The transport process went impossibly smooth. The G4S team displayed top-tier professionalism. Climate control trucks, GPS tracking, 2 guards with live ammunition and hawk-like eyes. I sat in the passenger seat as the convoy leader, watching the headlights cut through the darkness, my mind completely clear. 2 days later, the shipment arrived safely at the handover facility. We met Mr. Thorne and the buyer's representative. The buyer was Ms. Vance, Chairman Vance's daughter. She looked unassuming, gentle even, but her eyes held a sharp, executive intelligence. We opened the crates. Inspection. When the 3 pieces of lunar celadon were revealed, flawless and glowing, Ms. Vance's eyes finally showed a gleam of satisfaction. Mr. Miller, excellent work. She extended her hand. Your professionalism and responsibility have made a deep impression. Mr. Thorne nodded beside her. Lucas, this success is thanks to you. Heritage Prime is lucky to have you. I smiled humbly. I knew my luck was about to run out. The handover was complete. The commission, millions of dollars, would hit the company accounts soon. My mission was over. I booked a ticket back to New York for the next day. Before boarding, I sent David a text. David, lunar celadon successfully handed over. Returning to New York tomorrow. No reply. I didn't expect one. The second day back in New York, the moment I walked into the office, the receptionist told me David wanted to see me. I walked into that familiar office. David sat in his executive chair, and Barb stood beside him like a gatekeeper. Both wore expressions of immense relief, mixed with the anticipation of revenge. David tossed a document onto the desk, sliding it toward me. Lucas, sign it. I looked down. Black ink on white paper. Notice of termination. Reason: serious violation of company regulations. During the Lunar Celadon project, ignored cost control principles, maliciously inflated project budgets, causing unnecessary financial loss to the company, displaying insubordination and poor attitude. I looked at the list of sins and felt an urge to laugh. David, is this burning the bridge after crossing the river? Call it what you want. David leaned back, arms crossed, looking victorious. The company doesn't need disobedient employees like you. Take your severance and get the hell out. Barb chimed in, exactly. No sense of the big picture. Fighting leadership over petty profits. Who would hire someone like you? I ignored her. I just looked at David. David, are you sure you want to do this? Cut the crap. I signed it and it's stamped. You sign it or not, you're leaving today. He was getting impatient. I nodded. Okay. I didn't pick up the termination notice. Instead, I reached into my briefcase, pulled out another document, and placed it on the desk. It was a printed email. I turned it toward David and Barb. Before I sign that termination, I think you two might need to read this. David and Barb leaned in, confused. When they saw the subject line, the color drained from both their faces simultaneously. Subject: Personnel announcement, establishment of Special Assets Division and leadership appointment from Office of the Chairman. To all employees. Sent today, 9:00 a.m. David's hand began to shake. He snatched the paper, his eyes locked on the text. Barb leaned over to read, and when her eyes scanned the content, her knees buckled. She grabbed the corner of the desk to stay upright. David's lips trembled as he read down. To adapt to the demands of high-end business development, the board has decided to establish the Special Assets Division effective immediately. The division head shall possess final approval authority over project budgets and independent personnel authority over team members. Finally, his gaze landed on the appointment line. Mr. Lucas Miller is hereby appointed as Director of the Special Assets Division, effective immediately. Director Miller will report directly to the chairman. Notice issued hereby. At the bottom was the scanned signature of Preston Vance. No. Impossible. David muttered, his face as white as a sheet. This is fake. You photoshopped this. Barb began to shriek. Lucas, you forged company documents. That's a crime. I didn't speak. I simply raised a finger and pointed to the clock on the wall. 9:05 a.m. The company PA system usually broadcasts morning announcements at 9:05. A second later, the familiar voice of the HR director filled the room from the ceiling speakers. Attention all staff. Please listen to an important personnel announcement. To adapt to the demands of high-end business development. Every word from the speakers matched the email perfectly. Each syllable hit David and Barb like a sledgehammer. When the phrase, appointing Mr. Lucas Miller as Director of the Special Assets Division, rang out, the paper in David's hand fluttered to the floor. It was as if his spine had been removed. He collapsed completely into his chair. His limbs began to twitch uncontrollably. His eyes lost focus, staring blankly at the ceiling tiles. His lips quivered, saliva pooling at the corner of his mouth, and a wet, rasping sound. HRRK. HRRK. Leaked from his throat. Barb, meanwhile, had fully disintegrated. She slid down to the floor like a pile of wet laundry. Her eyes went vacant for a second before snapping to me, filled with a venom so pure she looked ready to eat me alive. Her fingers clawed at the polished floorboards, making a screeching, nail-on chalkboard sound. The office was silent except for the emotionless voice on the PA and the heavy, ragged breathing of the two of them. I walked over to David's desk, bent down, and picked up the notice of termination. I placed it in front of him. David, look at this. Do you still need me to sign it? A gurgling noise came from David's throat, but he couldn't form a single word. I smiled, picked up the termination notice, and slowly tore it in half. Then into quarters, then into confetti. I dropped the pieces into the wastebasket by his desk, just like throwing away trash. Oh, by the way, I said, as if remembering something trivial. Chairman Vance received my risk reports. Then he got a call from Mr. Thorne. He felt that our company's management style was remarkably unique. David and Barb's bodies jerked simultaneously. For instance, rejecting a full meal reimbursement for the hero of a $5 million deal over 25 cents. Or forcing a lead expert to waste valuable time on the road to save a few $100 on a hotel. Or risking a $100 million insurance claim to use non-compliant packaging just to save on shipping costs. With every sentence I spoke, their faces grew paler. The chairman believes that this kind of cost-cutting cuts morale and increases risk. I walked to the door and pulled it open. David, Barb, apologies, but I need to go inspect my new office. Oh, right. As the director of the new division, my first official act is to launch a comprehensive financial audit of the Lunar Celadon project. This will include every rejected expense, every delay, and every unreasonable challenge to the budget. I looked at the two broken figures in the office and smiled. I wish you both a productive day. I turned and left, gently closing the door. From inside, a scream erupted from Barb, a sound barely human, utterly unhinged, followed immediately by the crisp shatter of David's prized ceramic mug smashing against the wall. Outside, it was my new world. My new office was on the top floor, separated from the chairman's suite only by a sky garden. Spacious, filled with light, with a wall of floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the sprawl of Manhattan. The HR director personally escorted me, his attitude so deferential it was almost uncomfortable. Director Miller, this is your space. Regarding staff and budget, the chairman said you have carte blanche. Whoever you need, just send me the list. We will fully cooperate. I nodded. Thank you, Tom. You're welcome. The chairman said you are Heritage Prime's greatest asset. Anyone who disrespects you is disrespecting him. After Tom left, I stood alone in the vast office for a long time. The sunlight hit me through the glass, warm and solid. The first thing I did was build my team. I didn't headhunt from outside. The first person I requested was Old Tom from Archives, an employee near retirement who had been with the firm for 30 years. No one knew the history and transfer records of Heritage Prime's collections better than him. The second person was a young woman from customer service named Lily. She had mild social anxiety, but a photographic memory. She remembered the preferences and taboos of every VIP client. I called into my office. Old Tom looked nervous. Lily kept her head down, afraid to look at me. Director Miller, you asked for us. I poured them each a glass of water. Tom, Lily, I want you to join my division. They both froze. Me? Old Tom pointed at himself, disbelief on his face. I'm about to retire. I'm slow. I can't do it. Lily's voice was barely a whisper. I smiled. Tom, I need your experience. Lily, I need your brain. My department is the Special Assets Division. Our rules are simple. No internal politics, only professionalism. We answer only to results. We are here to create value for the company, not to pinch pennies. You represent the buried value in this company. I intend to dig that value out. Here, you don't need to look at anyone's face. You just need to use your skills. Your salaries will double effective immediately. Bonuses are separate. I looked at them, speaking clearly. I have only one requirement. Follow me and do the job right. Old Tom's eyes slowly began to shine. Lily lifted her head, her eyes sparking with a light I hadn't seen before. With the team taking shape, I finally had time to handle some personal business. I opened my drawer and pulled out the receipt I had kept safe for so long. The dinner invoice for $825. The red mark circling the 25 cents was still glaring. I looked at it for a long time. This receipt was a monument to the old era. It recorded stupidity, meanness, and souls bound by petty rules. Old rules are meant to be broken, and new rules will be written by me. Then, I reached for the other one, the rejected Amtrak ticket receipt $4,400. I fed them both into the shredder beside my desk. The machine didn't just hum. It roared, a sound like a blade cutting through an era. The papers that had entangled me for months were ground into confetti, an epitaph for the past. The sunlight outside fell perfectly onto the document on my desk, a partnership agreement from Louvre. I knew the era of David and Barb was over. I ran my hand over the cover of the proposal. I knew this was just the beginning. Story complete.